Welcome, our curious listener, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into a relationship that's, well, it's been called tortured for decades.
Hmm.
The complex, often frustrating, yet undeniably critical ties between the United States and Pakistan. For this deep dive, we're drawing from Daniel S. Markey, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, and his really insightful 2013 book, No Exit from Pakistan, America's Tortured Relationship with Islamabad.
It really is a profound puzzle Markey tackles here. Despite these huge differences in power, wealth, culture, history,
Hmm.
the U.S. and Pakistan, they share this mutual vulnerability.
Mutual vulnerability. How so?
Well, each side can threaten the other's vital interests. That's the core of it. But cooperation, it's historically been so difficult to sustain. And both nations often feel, deeply wronged, like they've been sinned against by the other.
Okay.
So our mission today is really to unravel this intricate history, try to understand its root causes, and, well, think about what it means for the future.
Right, let's dive into that foundational tension then. Markey paints a pretty stark picture, doesn't he? Calling it tortured.
Yeah, definitely not a special relationship like with Britain or even a mature alliance like, say, Japan or South Korea.
And he points to this damaging cycle. America's approach, he says, has often been inconsistent, the more fickle partner with these dramatic policy shifts.
Hmm. Well, Pakistan, on the other hand, has sometimes been guilty of greater misrepresentation,
Hmm.
claiming support for American goals, but maybe quietly steering things towards their own ends.
Often driven by that conflict with India, right?
Exactly. That geopolitical rivalry looms large. And what's immediately clear is just how deeply this dynamic affects Pakistan. This whole on-again, off-again pattern, it's fueled widespread mistrust.
Yeah, this pervasive anti-Americanism he talks about.
It really colors everything, public and private discourse. Pakistanis, high and low, often end up blaming America for a huge range of internal problems.
Like corruption, even electrical blackouts.
Right, sometimes through these really tangled conspiracy theories.
And what becomes so clear from this analysis is, well, Pakistan's deep vulnerability. Despite all the complaints, they're still heavily reliant on U.S. assistance, aren't they? Grants, loans.
Military equipment, too, like those 63 F-16s, it puts them in what Markey calls a humiliating position of dependence.
But even if they wanted to break free, could they?
Well, that's the thing. They just lack the economic muscle, the wealth, the natural resources to really insulate themselves from American influence, in the global economy or regional security.
Which brings us to that question.
Mm.
Why does this dependency stick around, especially with all the resentment?
There's a historical pattern, you see. After the Cold War, back in the 90s, when U.S. relations sort of tanked,
Yeah.
neither China nor Saudi Arabia could really bail Pakistan out from its economic and political turmoil. It led to, astronomical debt, weak governments.
Mm-hmm.
And today, getting their own house in order is even harder, which ironically makes them more susceptible to outside pressure and needing that aid.
Okay, so to really wrap our heads around Pakistan's complexities, Markey gives us this framework, these four faces.
Right. It's a great way to think about it, like looking at the country through different lenses. Each shows you a critical aspect.
So first one,
The first is the garrison state. Pakistan's military, well, it isn't just an institution. It's arguably the nation's most powerful.
controlling its own budget, dictating politics, a chunk of the economy.
Exactly. And its primary driver, advancing its own institutional interests. Officers, the source notes, they've been raised on a steady diet of anti-India vitriol.
And that justifies everything. Conventional forces, nukes, even supporting militant groups like Livati.
Pretty much. It all ties back to the perceived threat from India. Concerns about India's influence in Afghanistan, this idea of a potential two-front war. It's deeply ingrained.
It's a powerful narrative inside Pakistan, isn't it? Even if, from the outside it seems a bit puzzling why they feel so threatened by India, given India's own focus.
Yeah, India's focus on internal issues, and China. But the source highlights that Pakistani officers, they're schooled in realpolitik.
So, focusing on capabilities, not just intentions, guarding against what India could do.
Precisely. And here's an interesting angle. China. China's military power is seen as the greatest equalizer for Pakistan against India.
Providing hardware, nuclear blueprints, missiles.
All crucial stuff. Okay, moving on. The second face Markey identifies is Pakistan as a terrorist incubator.
Right, this is obviously a really sensitive point.
Hugely. The source notes that despite Pakistan's denials about supporting groups like the Taliban, well, top al-Qaeda leaders were found there. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, Osama bin Laden.
Found living within Pakistan.
Yes. And what makes it more complicated is Pakistan's own state having this long history of supporting some of the country's most sophisticated terrorist groups.
Viewing them as proxy forces.
Kind of, yeah. Lashkar-e-Taiba, Leti, for example, favored by the army and the ISI, carrying out attacks in India.
And their network reached the U.S., didn't it? With Davy Coleman Headley and the Mumbai attacks.
That's right. Headley trained in Leti camps. It shows the reach. And yet, on the flip side,
there's the nuclear security aspect.
Exactly. Pakistan has apparently made real efforts there. Over 20,000 personnel, U.S. help with security upgrades.
And U.S. officials, even President Obama, expressed some degree of confidence.
They did, but it raises that scary question, doesn't it? If this terrorist cancer, as the source puts it, spreads deeper within the military?
Could you see theft of nuclear material? Assassinations?
It's a chilling thought. And when you see figures like Hafiz Saeed or Hamid Gul at public rallies, apparently with state support, well, it offers too little confidence, as Markey says.
Okay, so the third phase.
The elite-dominated basket case. This paints a picture of a country stuck in repressive traditions, a tiny number of haves with all the power and wealth.
While everyone else struggles.
Exactly. And the stats are stark. Infant mortality higher than Rwanda or Uganda, despite Pakistan being wealthier overall.
The source says they failed to improve infant mortality rates commensurate with its income level.
That failure extends to infrastructure, too. Chronic energy shortages. Factories in sorry shape.
Which hits the textile industry hard, right? Lost jobs, lost profits.
Absolutely vital industry. And then there's water. They're running out of water, which underpins, what, 25% of GDP? 2/3 of jobs?
It's incredible to hear that lack of AC makes buildings unusable in summer, and people just use their phones for light during blackouts.
They're just accustomed to it. And the implication, the government hasn't pushed reforms because the leaders, well, they've insulated themselves, sending kids to private schools, sipping cool cucumber soup, while others lack safe water.
Wow. Okay, and the final phase.
The youthful idealist. This is the flip side, maybe. A country teeming with the energy and reform-minded ambition of its rapidly growing population.
So, potential for change. Nonviolent evolutionary change.
That's the hope. But the reformers often lack experience, viable allies. Markey highlights the rise of Imran Khan's PTI party, drawing these huge crowds of young urbanites, people previously outside politics.
Khan called it a tsunami, signaling a generational divide.
Right. And this energy, it's amplified massively by Pakistan's media. After Musharraf opened the airwaves in 2002, boom, channels exploded, 2 to 71 by 2009.
Creating this huge megaphone for new voices, often irresponsible maybe, but breaking taboos.
Exactly. Confrontational debates, making the media a real power to be reckoned with, not silenced.
And here's a fascinating detail. A satirical pop band, the Begart Brigade, without honor used YouTube to mock nationalist ideas.
And found an audience with urban youth.
Became a sensation. It points to a different possible future, definitely. But those entrenched interests, still very powerful.
Okay, we've looked inside Pakistan. Now let's flip back to the U.S. side and unpack why that anti-Americanism runs so deep. Markey points to 3 different strands.
Yeah, each rooted in history. The first is leftist and liberal anti-Americanism, stemming from U.S. support for military dictators.
Right. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, back in the early 70s, he really cultivated a mass perception that American intervention had worked against democracy and favored the military.
And that view persists.
Absolutely. You see figures like Aitzaz Hassan, a liberal activist and lawyer, still talking about how U.S. policies undermine democratic institutions.
And it's fascinating about Bhutto himself. Elite background, but ultimately brought down by the army he couldn't control.
And then blaming the U.S., right? Charging, without real basis, this vast, colossal, huge international conspiracy against him.
Just shows how deep that mistrust of U.S. interference goes.
Definitely. Okay, the second strand. Nationalist anti-Americanism. This is often fueled by that feeling of U.S. abandonment.
The Pressler Amendment in 1985 being a key example.
Exactly. Requiring White House certification, Pakistan didn't have a nuke. Then, by 1990, U.S. intelligence says, yep, they crossed the line, aid stops.
Feeding the abandonment narrative.
Perfectly. And no one symbolizes this more than A.Q. Khan.
The father of Pakistan's atomic bomb.
Born in India, started getting nuclear plans in the 70s. He used his popularity, channeling that nationalistic resentment, to become this huge figure.
Despite the proliferation allegations.
And he openly writes about defending Pakistan's Garat, its honor from American predations. lists all the supposed U.S. betrayals.
1965, 1971, 1989, claiming Pakistan is still slaves to the U.S.
It's powerful rhetoric, amplified by others like Shireen Mazari. It's just pervasive.
And the third trend.
Jihadist anti-Americanism, a total rejection of U.S. policies, principles, ideals.
Which really ramped up after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in '79.
Yeah, when Pakistan became the pipeline for U.S. weapons and money to the Afghan insurgents, and Pakistan, with meager American oversight, channeled aid to the most extreme Islamists, like Jalaluddin Haqqani.
And General Zia's Islamization policy played into this, too.
Big time. Infusing jihadist ideology into textbooks, weakening public schools, leading to the rise of madrasas, some becoming militant training camps.
So fast forward to post 9/11. There are great expectations for the partnership.
But they quickly hit greater frustrations. Take the Kerry-Lugar-Berman bill, the KLB bill.
Intended to broaden the relationship. Billions in non-military aid.
But it landed like a lead balloon in Pakistan, seen as a diplomatic disaster. Complaints from the army, the public. They saw it as controlling.
And the aid itself faced problems.
Huge problems. Cumbersome planning, auditing, accounting procedures. Plus, American officials faced constant threats, attacks, harassment, kidnappings. Made delivery incredibly hard.
And beyond aid, drone strikes became a massive issue.
A huge flashpoint. Obama defended them as very precise precision strikes against al-Qaeda.
But in Pakistan,
Seen widely as violations of sovereignty. Even though Musharraf had apparently tacitly cooperated, later leaders denounced them or just kept quiet.
that inconsistency just deepened the mistrust.
Totally. Then you had the Raymond Davis affair, the contractor killing 2 Pakistanis, and, of course, the bin Laden raid in Abbottabad.
Which revealed
What that?
complete incompetence, gross negligence, or outright complicity on Pakistan's part.
Yeah. Those were the hard questions being asked. It just drove the relationship to its lowest point since 9/11.
Okay, we've dug into the bilateral stuff. But how does this all connect to the bigger regional picture? Markey argues the 21st century is really about Asia's reemergence, especially China.
Yeah, you feel it everywhere. He mentions visiting Pudong in Shanghai. You get this visceral sense of explosive growth. A district built on farmland since the 90s, now with a GDP bigger than Croatia's.
And China's relationship with Pakistan, the all-weather friendship.
It's crucial. China gives them strategically critical military and nuclear technologies, acts as a diplomatic lifeline, like blocking UN terrorist listings.
Which helps Pakistan stand up to India.
Definitely reinforces that ability. But the source notes this friendship isn't, unconditional. China's more likely to counsel Pakistani restraint in conflicts with India.
And China has its own issues with militants based in Pakistan, like ETEM.
Right, the East Turkestan Islamic movement. So there are tensions there too. It's not a blank check.
So where does this leave India, often talked about as a natural ally for the U.S.?
India's rise seems likely but not assured. They still face big internal hurdles. Institutions, poverty, corruption.
But Markey argues Pakistan is still the greatest external threat to Indian growth and security.
Yeah, think about it. If Pakistan fell into extended civil conflict, India could face millions of refugees or energize revolutionary movements spilling over.
So the question is, can Pakistan really spoil the Indian dream?
The economic costs suggest it can. India's military mobilization after those 2001-2 attacks, over $1.4 billion, the 2008 Mumbai attacks, an estimated $100 billion hit to business.
Wow.
And sustained terrorism. It scares off foreign investment. Plus, the ongoing conflict blocks normal trade. One economist estimated India could lose $1.5 trillion in GDP by 2025 just from those regional barriers.
That's staggering. And yet, despite U.S. efforts to build this strategic partnership with India, like that big civilian nuclear deal in 2008,
India keeps its independent streak, right? Prioritizing strategic autonomy.
they call it non-alignment 2.0, meaning India will not, under any circumstances, toe the American line.
Exactly. It signals they want to be an independent third power, not just pick sides between Washington and Beijing.
Okay, so given this incredibly tangled, tortured relationship, what are America's actual options with Pakistan? Markey says Washington's in an impossible bind.
Pretty much. Counterterrorism, nuclear worries make cooperation vital. But Pakistan's crises just keep demanding attention. He looks at 3 broad strategies.
First up,
Defensive insulation. Basically minimize U.S. exposure, downsize the embassy, consulates, USAA, rely more on covert ops for terrorism threats.
Protect U.S. interests without expecting Pakistani help.
That's the idea. Improve homeland security, border defenses, strengthen nuclear deterrence against Pakistan's arsenal. He mentions the challenge of nuclear DNA testing to figure out who did it after an attack.
And the trade-off.
Pakistan would likely double down on its own nuclear program, see it as their guarantee against the U.S.
And China might see Pakistan as a potential U.S.-China flashpoint, like Korea.
Yeah, that's a major concern outlined in the source.
Okay, second option.
Military-first cooperation. Focus on keeping ties with Pakistan's military. Provide weapons, financial support, mainly for counterinsurgency.
Like training the Frontier Corps.
Exactly, which helped fight militants. It's practical, often gets results, but the risk,
You end up reinforcing the military's dominance over civilian government.
which Markey argues could be bad for the country and ultimately bad for the United States, too.
Right. And the final option.
Comprehensive cooperation. This is the big one, the most ambitious. Aiming for long-term security by helping Pakistan build a stable, more healthy society.
So investing in education, like LMS University.
Which started with USAID funds in the 80s, yeah. Health, like the Indus Hospital, world-class, free infrastructure, like the potential Dimer Basha Dam.
And supporting transparent aid, investing in Pakistani businesses, NGOs.
Like Acumen Fund, or the Rural Support Programs Network, RSPN, which showed real results reducing infant mortality and poverty where it operated.
Sounds good on paper, but what's the catch?
It's a long, long game. And as the source points out, billions in U.S. assistance appear to have carried little weight with Pakistan's leaders or public. Plus, comprehensive cooperation is harder to envision today than it was in 2001. Pakistan's seen as too big, too broken, and too hostile to American influence for an easy fix.
So this approach can only really tip Pakistan's balance at the margins.
That seems to be the assessment. It's not a magic bullet.
Wow. What an incredibly dense and nuanced deep dive this has been. We've really seen how the U.S. and Pakistan are locked in this tortured, mutually vulnerable relationship, shaped by deep mistrust, different interests.
And constantly buffeted by regional dynamics, right? China's rise, India's autonomy.
It really underscores Markey's point. There's no clean escape for the U.S. from Pakistan's challenges.
Exactly. Whether it's defensive insulation, military first, or comprehensive cooperation, each path has big trade-offs, real limits. The key takeaway seems to be that Washington just can't afford to ignore Pakistan's trajectory.
Which, if things keep going as they are, means what? A growing population, bigger nuclear arsenal, terrorist networks, alongside a shaky economy and governance.
That's the worrying picture painted by current trends.
So for you, our listener, here's a final thought to maybe chew on. If Pakistan's balance of power could tip unexpectedly towards real change, maybe sparked by that soft revolution, that tsunami of urban youth we talked about, how could the U.S. position itself, not to dictate like in the past, but to genuinely support that kind of positive evolutionary transformation without repeating old mistakes? Something to think about.